Well, the Albanese government's expanded home guarantee scheme will come into effect next
Afternoon.
month.
Economists say the Prime Minister's housing fix could actually drive up prices.
Census Lateral Economics says it could be as high as 10% in a year, though.
Some experts have concerns that the federal government's expanded scheme will simply push prices higher.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Your Wealth Playbook. Today we go over the biggest hype of 2025 with first home buyers and the 5% deposit scheme. Changes that came through at the start of October have been broadly publicised as game-changing for first home buyers getting into the market. Today, we break down what this looks like in dollars, how people are able to get into the top end of the market, the ongoing commitments, and where we see the sweet spot for first home buyers. Is this all it's hyped up to be? Let's find out today. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down, work out the numbers to get into a property, work out the numbers to stay in a property, and what other methods there are for first home buyers that don't want to go out and buy in Sydney for $1.5 million or in Melbourne for $950,000 and spend $60,000 on stamp duty.
Do you pay stamp duty on the first homeowners?
Yep.
Really? I thought they scrapped that.
So stamp duty, yeah, still payable up to, we're just going to talk New South Wales, up to $800,000 is your hard cap where there's no stamp duty whatsoever. Between $800,000 and $1 million, which was traditionally prior to the 1st of October, your sweet spot for first home buyers, say up to $900,000, because you'd be paying a concessional stamp duty up to that. And that's where the cap for this 5% scheme, no lenders mortgage insurance, stopped. But then up to $1 million, again, still concessional, over $1 million, just like your investor, second home, third home. So the scheme, although it's really good, 5% deposit to get in and lower interest rates and no lender's mortgage insurance, which can potentially still save, if you're 5% deposit on a property of 1.5 million, historically, you'd have to have more than 5% as a deposit anyway, because once you capitalize lender's mortgage insurance, which can be, 2 to 3% of the property value, you need sort of 7 to 8% there. Plus you need the stamp duty, you need sort of 11%, 12% deposit. What this change is that you've now got 5% up to a purchase price of 1.5 million for Sydney. So we'll just concentrate on Sydney as the example. With that, you'd have a deposit of 75 grand to get in there. Still paying your stamp duty, which on a purchase of 1.5 mil, you're looking at 65 grand. Another couple of grand for legals.
So, Jared, if I buy a property for $1.5 million, 5% deposit, how much do I need to include for stamp duty? What's my total all-in cost?
So 5% sounds great, but if you break it down for the top end of Sydney, you're looking at a purchase of 1.5 million, 5% on that, 75,000. You've then got stamp duty on that, which is nearly $65,000 as well, plus $2,000 or $3,000 for legal, conveyancing, building and pest, strata reports potentially. You're up for over close to 145 grand by the time you're said and done. So 5% sounds great, but if we're going to break it down and look at what that actually looks like, it's a lot closer to 10% if you're in that space. So 5% is just what the lender needs to secure theirs. You still need funds to complete your transaction over here.
Yeah, all right, that's Sydney, but what about Melbourne?
Now, same with Melbourne. If you look at Melbourne, their cap increase up to 950,000 as a purchase price. To get into that, you still need just over 100 grand. So you need your $47,500 5% deposit. You also need stamp duty, which on a purchase of that, nearly 50 grand for Victoria. Plus again, legal stamp duty, you're up for about 100 grand.
So I'm going to need 150K to start with and pure hard cash. But how much does a mortgage cost me each month for $1.405 million?
So let's say you've been renting. We're talking about a professional couple in Sydney that are buying at the top end of this range, potentially been paying $1,200 a week, $1,500 a week in rent. They are adamant that they don't want to rent anymore. They don't want to pay dead money. They then go into this purchase at 1.5 million, borrowing 95%. You're borrowing 1.425. Repayments on that, if we're looking at a 30-year home loan, interest rate of say 5.5%, repayments of about $8,100 a month. So you're looking at an increase on what they're doing at the moment for their rent of anywhere between 20 to 50%, depending on cases. On top of that, we've also got some serious financial commitments that come when you're buying property. You've got council rates, you've got insurance, you've got utilities, you've got wear and tear and maintenance on the property. Now, something to remember that we talk about on this all the time is the difference between tax deductible expenses and non-tax deductible expenses. All of these expenses that you've got on your owner occupied first home are non-tax deductible. So all of these have to be paid with after-tax income that you're earning after you've already paid tax to the government on it. So if you're paying $8,100 a month, next thing we're going to look at is how much you actually have to earn to be able to keep this property and pay your utilities and be able to live comfortably.
I currently rent for $1,200 a week. How much will this cost me in repayments now?
So you're paying at the moment $1,200 a week for your current rental. If we're looking at the top end of the Sydney market, borrowing 95%, $8,100 a month works out to be about $1,870. Let's call it $1,900 a week would be your current repayment to buy your own home.
An extra $700 a week.
So if you buy a property in Sydney for $1.5 million and you are single, to be able to have that approved by a bank, you'd have to be on about $400,000 a year.
Holy fuck.
As a couple, you'd have to be on $170 each because you pay you're just under your highest marginal tax rate there.
$400,000 as a single in Sydney or $170,000 as a couple. Surely it's got to be easier in Melbourne.
Absolutely. So we're looking at, again, 2/3 of the purchase price. So for Melbourne as a single, $230,000 as opposed to the $400,000 that you need in Sydney. Couple, $100,000 each. So Melbourne, if you're looking at the top end of the market, top end of the range, as a couple, a young professional couple, lot lower barrier for
A
entry.
little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
A little bit easier.
Now, again, something that we probably need to talk about here on the flip side is you've also got an asset that's going up in value. And yes, you are paying interest. Interest looks horrible. But if we have a look at the previous 30 years and what a property in Sydney would have done had you bought it, paid minimum repayments for 30 years, where you'd be right now, where this will be in 30 years, obviously we don't know. But if you have a look at property over a very, very long period of time, generally you're seeing pretty good capital growth, especially in big capital cities on the East Coast. And now Perth going nuts as well.
Jared, I can't earn $400,000 in Sydney, or my wife and I can't earn $170,000. Where else should I be looking?
Majority of people don't earn $400,000 a year or $170,000 each in a couple. These are just the top end of the market when it comes to these schemes. Now, if you're looking at other purchases in and around Sydney, Newcastle, Wollongong, you can come right back down. As a first home buyer, the sweet spot is still, in my opinion, somewhere between up to $1 million. So up to $1 million, you're still going to be paying concessional stamp duty between $800,000 and $1 million. If you can get anything under $800,000, and again, remember, this doesn't have to be your forever home. This is your entry into the market. To get something under $800,000, your cost of entry to go in there is simply your 5% deposit. So at $800,000, $40,000, and legals and conveyancing, let's say $2,000 to $3,000, building and pest report, $43,000, $44,000 out of pocket. If you can find something $800,000 or less. Again, this is not going to be our forever home. This is not going to be something that we're going to be in for 10, 15 years. But the importance of getting into the market in a property market that is on the rise with rates going down and population growing is something that is super important for you to have a look at and consider.
Do you have to live in it? If I buy this home under the first homeowners scheme, do I actually have to live in it?
Yep.
And for how long?
12 months, commencing within the first 12 months.
Is there a certain amount of time that I have to live in it? So if I'm working in Sydney and I buy a house in, say, Newcastle, I've got to live in it within the first 12 months, move into it, but then I've also got to live in that place for 12 months. That's a fair commute.
For 12 months, 12 consecutive months, commencing within the first 12. So when I say commencing, you might move into it on settlement day and move out 12 months and 1 day later. You might rent it out for 11 months, move into it after that for a period of 12 months, commencing within the first 12 months.
All right, that leads us to our Fast 5 rapid questions. First question, you need perfect credit to qualify.
Ideally, yes. We want a good credit score, 650 or over, but there's still options under that because there are plenty of lenders that participate in this scheme.
You can only buy new property using the scheme.
Incorrect. You can buy existing property or you can buy brand new property.
You can use the scheme with a guarantor.
No, there is no need for a guarantor in this scheme. Essentially, the Australian government is going as your guarantor here for the bank, where they're guaranteeing the portion of your loan above 80% up to a maximum of 95%, but you still need your 5% deposit.
It's cheaper to wait until you save 20%.
Cost of opportunity would say that it's not. And also now with this scheme, lenders are pricing your loan just like you're borrowing 80% and you have a 20% deposit. So, no.
This scheme guarantees your loan.
The scheme is essentially your security guarantee, correct? But it doesn't guarantee your loan in terms of repayments. That's you, the borrower. The scheme also doesn't guarantee approval. So it's important to know that you still need to demonstrate your ability to complete the transaction with enough cash for your 5% deposit, your stamp duty if it's applicable, and any other costs. There's plenty of benefits and there's plenty of upside for people that need access to this scheme. Personally, I still think there are some great purchase opportunities out there that are within the concessional stamp duty brackets, but this is also a great opportunity for professional couples within major regional or capitals to be able to get into the market and save enormous amounts of lenders' mortgage insurance. Obviously, the negatives and the pitfalls we've explained and gone through around affordability, but there are also plenty of other opportunities for you to get into your first property that don't necessarily need to be at the top end of this scale. Thanks so much for tuning in this week to Your Wealth Playbook. Hope you've got a lot of value out of it. If you have any friends or family that you feel would value from listening to it, make sure you share and shoot it over to them to have a listen, and we'll chat to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Your Wealth Playbook. If you could help us out in any way, the biggest benefit that Jared and I, and also Danny, will get is if you can subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platform and maybe share it. Send it to somebody that would benefit.
The information in this podcast is general and does not consider your personal objectives, financial situation, or needs. Before making financial decisions, consider whether it is appropriate for you and seek professional advice. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future results. If you would like to discuss today's topic further, reach out and we would love to help.
Jared and I have not assessed your individual circumstances. Therefore, this podcast is general in nature and for informational purposes only. This is not personal financial advice. There are so many advisors and brokers in Australia. You'll find one that you resonate with, but this is for informational purposes only. Or maybe just use Jared and I.